This is episode 64 of the Ownstream podcast, featuring Jason Moore. Welcome to the Ownstream podcast, everyone. I'm Stephen Shelley.
And I'm Teresa Scoba.
And we just had a wonderful conversation with Jason Moore. And Jason's a podcaster, so talking to him is very easy as a guest. Although, as he told us offline later, that he's used to hosting these, so it was a little different for him to be a guest. But Jason is someone who's quite experienced, many, many years having been working from the road, being someone who's a experienced digital nomad and who has kind of turned himself into a resource for that community, people who are working and traveling, whether they call themselves digital nomads or freelancers or location-independent workers, whatever it may be. Every day, more and more people are moving into this world of being location-independent, leveraging technology and the internet and email and all the wonderful resources that we have at our fingertips to work from places not necessarily like an office. And so Jason is now serving that community through his podcast, through the community he's developed, and through the programs and products that he releases. So it was fascinating to hear about both his experiences, but also kind of how he serves that community, what needs do people have. And we think this will be particularly interesting for those of you who are either in that lifestyle, kind of like we are, or who might be thinking about jumping into that world of either leaving your job or converting your work into something that can be location independent, basically prioritizing travel and deprioritizing staying in one place all the time. And that was a big thing for Jason. He wanted to travel. He didn't know how to necessarily even make that work when he started. But as you'll learn in this interview, it kind of happened perfectly. It flowed naturally. And he's been able to go and see and experience things that he's wanted to pretty much for the better part of 2 decades.
Yeah, Jason he's like, his story is so fun, and he started doing this, like Stephen said, like almost 20 years ago, when it just wasn't as common as it is today. It's becoming more and more, not that it's the common path at all, but it's become more and more common to hear people's ability to work from the road, create something unique to them, and turn that into a business and a lifestyle. And now Jason really like offers those resources to others. And he's very clear, as Stephen said, his priority was travel. Like, he knew that's what he loved and the way he wanted to do it. And the way he did it may not be the way that others want to do it. But what he's created is resources and support online for people to design their ideal travel and location independent lifestyle any way that they want to. And he really says that's where it starts. Location independence was his passion. That's what he wanted. He wanted to be able to do whatever he wanted to do anywhere in the world at any time. And that gradually, really beautifully, emerged as he talks about scratching his own itch and how that turned into his own business. And we talk a lot about entrepreneurship in this podcast and how basically that kind of following of his passion and excitement for travel and location independence became a calling for him to serve others in that way. And now he does tons of stuff online, and he's, raising a family at the same time. He does tons of stuff online where he's giving away resources, and he's doing podcasts, and he's telling people stories of how to make this work for you. And I think he does it for people who are full-time travelers and people who just want to incorporate more travel into their lifestyle. He talks about how you can do work in all kinds of different ways, whether it's making some of your job remote, all the way to designing your own online business. So what's so great is he's so accessible, and he's a wealth of information on this topic, and he really feels like he could speak to anybody who has interest in this.
And I think for me, the part that really rang the most true, which you'll hear him talk about, I'll summarize it here, but it's just redefining what an entrepreneur means. It's not, as he says, Richard Branson or Elon Musk, or as it was, I guess, my initial image was like these kind of startups in Silicon Valley where you're raising millions of dollars in capital just to get this thing off the ground. There's a very different world and community of entrepreneurs, and it's growing by the day, people who are selling informations, people who are coaches, people who are affiliates, like all kinds of opportunities there that don't need millions of dollars or, you don't have to be Steve Jobs to call yourself an entrepreneur. It's a very different definition these days, and he gets into that a lot. And basically, he makes the beautiful point that really nobody knows what they're doing, and that's okay. And that's completely okay. So very inspiring. Jason's so easy to talk to and listen to. It's really, really a fun conversation, one of the funnest I think we've had in a while. And I'm very accessible too. So if you're looking for some encouragement, some inspiration to kind of break out of the mold in terms of work and career and where to work and travel and how those things can kind of come together in a portrait that really works for you, you're going to love this conversation with Jason Moore and what he has to offer.
One final thing we should say is that Jason has this yearly bundle of resources that he puts together, a ton of, he says it's over $5,000-$6,000 worth of courses and, resources they've gathered together to help you begin this kind of lifestyle. And there's also personal support that comes along with that. And that's happening the week after this podcast will go live. So if you're listening to this around when it's gone live, that's going to be available May 29th to June 4th. It's called the Paradise Pack. It's on his website. We talk a lot about what's in there in this, but just want to flag that from the beginning because we get to it later in the conversation. And there'll be information about that in the post that goes live with this episode.
Yeah, last but not least, we're on Patreon. If you are enjoying our show, if you're new to our show, if you want to support what we're doing, please go to ownstream.co/Patreon. You can contribute to our creative process for as little as $5 a month. So if you're somebody who's gotten a lot of value out of our show, we'd love your support. We're going to do the show anyway, but the Patreon is a great way for individuals to support creators, and that's what we are. All right, we'll be back afterwards with a very quick wrap-up. Until then, enjoy our wonderful conversation with Jason Moore.
Okay, Jason, welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to talk to you. We've been following your work for a while, and you're doing all kinds of fun, exciting stuff in the world, making travel and possible for everyone. And we're really excited to talk to you about what you do and your story about this, and also kind of what you offer to others. So thanks for joining us.
Plus, you're a parent.
Plus, you're a parent of a 2-year-old.
You're doing all this with kids. That's like, those of us with 2-year-olds, we bow down. That's really
You know how it is. No, that is true. Thanks for the kind words. And I'm doing my best to help people travel, and whatever that means. And no, I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, we before we get into what you do, we'd love to hear kind of how you ended up where you are now, and so maybe we could start with, before you were, living travel as a lifestyle, you were in college. So I know that at least part of your life, you were in a fairly mainstream path. But tell us a little bit about, your early life. Like, when you were younger, like when you were a kid, were there early explorations in travel or other explorations outside the box? Was there a sign that you would kind of do things differently, or was your early life fairly mainstream, would you say?
How does anybody end up where they end up, Teresa? I don't know. That's the big question, right? No, I mean, that is tough to say, because I think when you're growing up, I mean, you're always going to be exposed to some sort of what you might call out of the box type of things, whether it's your parents or, ideas, or maybe you go over to a friend's house and they're doing something, living in a totally different way than your family is. And, these are like experiences you have as you grow up. So it's hard to coalesce them into, one philosophy, like look back and connect it all. But, yeah, I mean, I went to college, I guess, like many people, just kind of following that traditional path and not really aware of the fact that there were a lot of different other choices that could be made, and I think part of that is generational, right? Like, I'm 43 years old and I grew up without the internet. The internet didn't become a thing until I was in college, and then it was like email and that kind of thing. And you can't discount like the effect of the internet, right? Because now you can go on and like pretty much any lifestyle that you aspire to or live, you can find somebody else like doing it and follow them and, be like, oh, that's cool. Like, that's okay. Like, somebody else is doing it and they're making it, so I can make it too. Right. Mm-hmm. So in that way, the internet's very empowering because you get exposed to a lot more, I think, through like podcasts like yours and, blogs and all of that type of stuff. So, that didn't exist back then. So I don't know. Yeah, it's like a typical young person. Like, I didn't think that much about what direction my life was going. I was just kind of like on the ride, right? Like, hey, I'm going to go to college now because that's what you're supposed to do. And I then started, talking to some friends that were studying abroad and they were coming back, and I kind of discounted it as like a thing I couldn't afford. But I was really intrigued by the idea of studying abroad, and I would look at their pictures and be like, man, I want to like go to Europe. I want to do that whole thing. Like that's a thing people do. You can go backpacking in Europe. Cool. And then once I figured that out, I then started prioritizing my life after college around that. Although I didn't know at the time that I was going to become like nomadic for over a decade and all that kind of stuff. I was just focusing on like taking one trip.
Yeah. What was your major?
Communications. Oddly enough, I guess I'm actually using my major, which is kind of strange. I thought about that like a few months ago. I was like, wow, I think I'm kind of using my, although, podcasts didn't exist either. Right. But, I mean, it's what communications, what a cop-out major, right? It's like, well, I can communicate. Great. Right. Awesome. Okay. That's a good skill.
Yeah, my major in college was dramatic art, and it was a similar thing. I looked across.
He uses that now.
Okay. But I looked across the board, and I was like, I don't know. None of these other things seemed to be relevant to me at all. So that was exciting. I thought maybe I'll be a movie star. And that didn't happen, by the way.
Yet.
That's right, yet. That's right. Thank you. Long way to go. So when you...
wait, hold on, Steven. I have to ask, if you get upset about something or you kind of lose your cool for a minute, or you just be like, excuse me, I'm a dramatic artist. Leave me alone here, Have
I tried that? I think I've tried that.
Probably.
I think I probably have. I think I used that so long ago that it's just no longer even valid. Teresa knows me far too well enough. But it pops up in other ways. Mm-hmm. We're taking a Spanish class now.
Oh, yeah. Anyway.
And so it's
Jason's
the Spanish
end up interviewing
teacher.
us.
I know. Okay. we do have questions we're going to get to, but
I am curious. Wait, how long have you guys been together?
Funny you should ask, because we're about to have our 5-year wedding anniversary
this weekend.
We're taking a little road trip in our van out to the Alabama hills, and Teresa knows the exact day count that we've been dating / engaged, married. You want to tell him?
No, I don't. But a little over 8 years.
A little over 8 years, yeah.
Nice. Awesome. We have sort of parallel things going on. Not 5 years yet, but kind of close, and we both have a 2-year-old, so interesting.
Okay. Cool. There's a relation there, and your age is like right between ours too. So I do feel like we're on kind of a parallel.
Yeah, that's right. I'm the oldest. In other words.
I'm the oldest as well, so I know how it feels. I get the old man jokes too, believe me.
That's right. Well, when I left college, so I had this degree, you had a degree, and I did do some travel then, though within the confines of a job. And something about travel just does something to you. And for me, first of all, I was struck by how, different people did live the way that my parents lived or that Americans live. There's all these different cultures, all these different ways of life, all these different places to be. There's this everything changes when you start to travel, and it certainly seems that happened for you. And maybe you could share about your early experiences travel after college, and kind of, I know there was some debt kind of you were lugging around there. Maybe you could kind of set the stage for what that became for you once your college communications degree was well in hand.
The old college debt. Yeah. I mean, I guess some of my earlier memories of traveling were like camping with my dad, for example. And I just remember feeling like a sense of adventure around that and it being a cool thing. But I didn't know it seemed so far off that I was going to do that on my own because I was just a kid, right? But then when I started, taking some road trips in college and things like that, I worked at Disney one summer when I was 20 years old. I did the college program, they call it, which basically meant I was a custodial host. I was custodial host. Figure that one out. I swept up cigarette butts around Epcot Center. But
I thought it was
I got
character.
to live in yeah. It's not the most exciting Disney character. Like, hey kids, check out the custodial host. He's awesome.
He was way in the background in Bambi. You might remember.
Look, he cleans things. Wow. So I mean, just getting the chance to live in Orlando and have that experience. The world started opening up. Like, we spent one morning on the beach all night, just to watch the shuttle launch in the morning, experiences like that. And 20 years old, and I'm like, man, I just love this feeling of seeing new things and being exposed to new places, and this feeling of freedom that goes with this. And and then with the debt, it I guess, probably like a lot of college students, or maybe even, beyond college, that have debt. Like, sometimes, I don't know, maybe it was naivete, but I didn't really, it didn't consume me. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay all this debt off? Because it was about $20,000 and I wasn't totally stressed about it for some reason. Now, if I was coming out of I know medical school or people that go to law school or something, they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and that I could imagine weighs on you. But it was still a concern, right? It's like, okay, well, I have this debt and I have 6 months till I have to start paying it. Because I think at the time, I don't know if it's still true, but you could get a 6 month, you could defer it for 6 months or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it was all right, well, but I need to get a job, I guess. And then that was a whole, well, what am I I just started applying to random jobs in New York City because I'm like, I don't know. What is account manager? I don't even know what this stuff is. I don't know what I want to do. I'm sure some people listening right now are shaking their heads like, I can relate to this. Which is it's a feeling that's you got to take the power back, right? In that way. And again, I chalk some of it up to being young, but also, I needed to learn to be hey, I should take initiative. I should take initiative to do the things I want to do and be proactive. I didn't know what lifestyle design was or anything like that, but I guess I did it inadvertently. I basically made travel a priority. So I honed in on this idea that, hey, I'm going to go on this backpacking trip to Europe, and I'm committing to going to this no matter what. And once that was set, it was supposed to be I graduated in December. It was supposed to be that summer, but I started looking for jobs that allowed me to travel, because I'm like, well, if I want to travel, why don't I look for jobs that make me travel, right? Yeah. So I ended up getting one. I got on a tour that was a charity event that went into a different city every week, that was in this whole industry that I had no idea existed, called event marketing. Basically became a glorified carny, we called ourselves. But we traveled around to different cities for 8 months and went to a different city every week and set up a racetrack where kids raced modified lawn tractors around, and it was a Kmart parking lot, and Kmart would donate $5 to a local drug prevention charity. So anyway, I was one of the managers in this tour. So I was basically traveling around the country for 8 months. So I decided to do this, which, by the way, the tour schedule came via fax. Talk about old school. Nice. I don't know what this is, but I'm on my mom's couch right now, and this is awesome. I get to go everywhere, and I'm going to make $500 a week, and this is incredible. I'm rolling in the dough and all this stuff. So I went on tour, and I still had committed to the trip, but I decided, well, why don't I do this tour, save up money, I can start paying off my debt, and then I can go next summer. So I went on that tour, which ended in the winter, and then I picked up a couple more tours because I didn't want to go to Europe in the winter. I picked up a couple more tours because I found out about this industry and there were other opportunities. And then I went that following summer, and I was 24 years old, and it was a solo trip, and I didn't know anybody that had ever left the country by themselves. I had no point of reference for what that experience was whatsoever. I was just on a plane to Spain. I used to be in a rap band too, but that wasn't intentional. And I just landed, and I'm like, okay, now I'm just in Europe by myself. This is crazy. And and I did this trip, and it changed my life.
Wow.
Wow. You're bringing me back to when I left college, and that idea of this extremely narrow path. Like, I don't know what you even just said, account executive, account manager or something. Like, I remember all these people that I went to college with who had so many diverse interests and excitements. And like, all of a sudden they were all becoming consultants or financial executives or something. And I was like, what happened? I remember just being totally baffled by that, so, and the same thing happened when I came out of law school, which is already its own narrow path. It's just like, it just gets narrower and narrower, and these like single like definitions of jobs that just don't seem to have any, meaning or texture. But I'm interested in like, what happened when you went on the road. Like, maybe you can talk about people have these narrow ideas of what's possible that they can do in the world, right? When there's really like infinite things you can do in the world. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about like from there, how did this become kind of a lifestyle for you, and maybe some other examples of how you made money on the road, and like ways that you jobs or like businesses that you've had on the road and what you discovered.
Yeah, sure. Well, even when I did that first gig, the funny thing was that I still thought it was like a one-time thing, which I think a lot of people do when they travel too. They're like, oh, I'm going to travel this summer. I'm going to travel around the world, and then I'll get it out of my system, and then it'll be done, right?
Yeah.
But I still thought, like, I was like, because where am I going to find other opportunities like this? I still didn't know. I thought it was just like a special thing I was going to get to do. I was going to get to go on this tour and have this amazing adventure around the U.S. And then I would have to like, I'd do my trip to Europe eventually, but then I would, at some point, I'd have to go back into the quote unquote real world or whatever. But as I started doing these road jobs, and then I did the trip through Europe, and I started talking to other travelers, and like I was meeting people. Like I remember meeting this guy once in the south of France, and he was like, we was just at the hostel, and I was like, "Oh, what are you doing today?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm going down to the docks. Like, I'm trying to like find a job on a boat so I can go traveling on a boat somewhere. And I'm just offering to paint some people's boats and upkeep them, and then get a hop another boat ride or whatever." And I'm like, "What? This is crazy." And then of course I met a lot of Australians and people that are from countries where it's more in the culture to travel for a year or for 3 years or whatever. And I was shocked by that, because then my little 2-month trip sounded like a puny endeavor, not in a bad way, just not like comparing myself, but just kind of being blown away with what you can travel for a year. Like, how do you do that? And the irony is, when I came back and I decided, well, I just want to keep traveling. That's all I want to do. And it was already there, but the seed was planted. And as I was doing these gigs, and I went on this trip, and then I knew I could get more gigs probably. And I did in the event marketing industry. I realized, well, I'm just going to keep doing this because I'm having fun. And the irony is that I paid off my debt way quicker than I could if I was living a conventional lifestyle, because when I was on tour, the company paid for the hotels. I didn't have vehicles because they had vehicles, so I never paid for gas or any bills, essentially, and got per diem and didn't live anywhere and just had some stuff in my mom's and some stuff in storage. So I didn't have any bills. Yeah. So I paid my debt off in half the time. It took me 5 years instead of 10. And that was a great feeling. And I got to save a lot of money while I was traveling, doing tours, and just using my time in between contracts to travel overseas and explore other places in the world. And that was the model I followed. I didn't really, I guess I was nervous at points that, when you do contract work, well, what am I going to get another contract? What am I going to do next? But it always got figured out, and it did, because I made travel the priority. You know what I mean? It was travel that was the thing I was going to do, and everything else was going to fit around that. And after some time, I realized that was a way to live, and I just lived it because why not? I was having such a blast. And because I was having fun, and I think following my heart in that way, opportunities were coming up, and I still had to be proactively searching them out. It wasn't like, oh, people just show up at your doorstep and give you opportunities. But my mind was open to just anything that had to do with travel. So to answer your question, some of the different ways. I did this touring stuff in the event marketing industry. I worked like a summer as a adventure travel tour guide. I worked as a tour manager for a band, touring around and living on the bus and doing that whole thing. And eventually moved to Boulder, Colorado for a little while when I got burnt out on the road. But that's the long story short of 10 plus years on the road.
Wow, cool.
That's the other thing I think a lot of people don't know is that it's not necessarily so expensive to travel. Like I think people get blocked by thinking that, that it's going to cost so much and they can't afford it. But like this idea that you were actually saving money and paid off your debt while you were doing all of this.
Yeah, well, we used to. I remember on one of the programs I did was it involved driving a double-decker bus around the U.S. from England that only went 45 miles an hour. Sometimes we would get pulled over for going too slow on the highway, for example. And it was interesting because we were promoting a makeup brand. I say we because there was a team of us. And we would do this at Walmart's. And people would come in, and we had a professional makeup artist that would give people makeovers, and this was the gig, right? I was managing this tour, and it would travel around and do this, and we would just talk to people all day that were coming, and it's so funny because so many people would be like, "Well, how do you get to do? You just travel around. This is awesome. I want to do this. It's so cool." And then I would start asking them questions and about their life. I guess that's what I do. Right. I did that before I had a podcast.
Communication.
I mean, I'm just curious about people is what it comes down to. So I'd start asking them questions and just learning a little bit more about their life and sharing more about what our experience actually is. And if it got that far, oftentimes to the point, then they would totally do a 180 and be like, "Oh, I couldn't do that."
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't want to live in hotels for 10 months out of the year. Yeah. And I get that because that's not a lifestyle for everybody, But I guess the point is sometimes on the surface level, it's easy to see something and idealize it. But to understand the reality of it, which is why podcasts like yours and other things out there are great because it gives you a chance to understand the reality of it a little more and kind of conceptualize that and see, hey, is this... I don't like to overthink things, but at the same time, if you're gonna make a big decision, at least think it out a little bit and just decide, hey, is this something like I want to have this experience and not expect too much from the experience, just kind of like go into the experience as, hey, this is going to be an experience. I'm going to see what happens. I think that's a great way to approach it.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point, the entrepreneurial bug sounds like it sort of hit you. Was there, for everyone I think who's started businesses and traveled and dealt in podcasting and online businesses, et cetera, they read the 4-Hour Workweek. Was that something for you? Did you read the 4-Hour Workweek where somewhere along the road? I mean, usually when you're having these conversations with people, there's always a point where there's like, and then I read the 4-Hour Workweek.
How awesome would it be to write a book where people say, and then I read your book?
I know. God bless Tim Ferriss. I'm telling you.
Yes, that did happen to me. And before that, though, I had this inner urge to do something that was my own. I didn't know what that meant or how that was going to manifest itself or what it would exactly be. But I had that feeling within. I just didn't know how to put words to it, I suppose, or what that meant. But then when I did read the 4-Hour Workweek and I started reading some other things and realizing, whoa, I see travel fitting into this because that was Tim Ferriss's story, right? He took a break and left his business and went to Argentina, I think, for some months and found that his business grew because he automated things. And that was a big awakening for me because I was like, oh, I can travel and have flexibility to travel wherever I want. I don't have to go on these tours anymore and be tied to a schedule because events are about as location dependent as you can be because you have to be at an event at a certain time in a certain city. And that was an awesome experience. But after many years of touring, I wanted to have a different experience. And, by the way, you mentioned different ways of travel. I love talking about that stuff because that's exactly what I do on the Zero to Travel podcast, my podcast, which is all about sharing the different ways to travel. So I love talking to other people that have done it in different ways than I have because I share my experience, but there are so many other ways that I have never walked down to the docks and hopped on a boat and gone somewhere with somebody, for example. So there are so many ways to do it, and that's a beautiful thing because you can not only travel, but tie in your interests. And as you grow, your interests change as well. And for me, I got to a point where I didn't want to work for somebody else anymore. I didn't want to do these contract gigs. I wanted to have my own thing, and I wanted to be location independent. And that was my next intention. If my first one was prioritizing just traveling, and I did all these travel jobs for years, then the next phase of that was to be location independent. So I would be able to satisfy that entrepreneurial urge and also still have the flexibility to travel when I wanted or work from home if I wanted to do that.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like when you're talking about your just natural interest in talking to other people about what they want to do and who they are and, what they dream about, like that there's sort of like a calling came out of you with this, that there was like a natural inclination alongside that entrepreneurial drive to, and your own search for freedom to really serve others. Like what's the, maybe you can talk about maybe your first business you set up or, how that's evolved for you in terms of your businesses and what you're trying to give to others through this work.
Sure. The first thing was in the event industry because that's what I knew. And I just had this goal to go location independent and I didn't know how to do it, just like I didn't know how to travel early on. So that was a confusing time. Reading the 4-Hour Workweek was a great step, but then it was a little bit to go deeper and actually figure something out for yourself and tie in some of the concepts and learn the skills and all that good stuff. It takes a concentrated effort, and I had more of a floundering around the internet effort going on. Anybody can relate to that. But I first went location independent by providing a service for a buddy of mine who did some staffing for us for events. And we just developed a friendship over time, and he was interested in bringing me on to do business development for his company because I had a lot of contacts in the event industry. And I said, well, do you care if I do it from Norway or from anywhere in the world? And he said, I don't care as long as you help me build my business. Yeah. So, because that was my requirement, So I was working a job for about 2 years in Boulder, Colorado, where I was doing outside sales. So I didn't have to be in an office. I was going to different bars and restaurants. I was working for a liquor distributor, but that was good. But then I was like, I'm not going to do this forever. My location independence is my thing. And that was the first opportunity. So I just took the leap, which was hard to do because giving up a steady paycheck and all that, I can relate to people that do it because I did that and I had a mortgage and all that. And it wasn't easy to do. But I did it and I didn't look back. And then from that, I started an online business that serviced the event industry. It was basically like an eBay for these custom vehicles, but I'm not really doing that anymore. And all of that then led into starting Zero to Travel, which was more sort of my side hustle, I guess. Like my main thing was the freelance gig. My side thing was the event business online because I knew it tied in with what I was doing anyway most of the time. And then on the double side was the double side of fries was was Zero to Travel because I was like, I have to share all these different ways that people can travel, and I want to do this podcast. And I'm in a mastermind group with some people I'm really tight with, and I've been talking about this podcast forever. And one day my friend Emily's just like, dude, stop talking about this podcast. You clearly have to do this. Just do it. So I started the podcast, and that opened up a whole world of things. And then I started other projects around that, which we can talk about if you want.
Yeah, I think many people that I've spoken with in the world of kind of location independent businesses, there's often a moment where they realize like, oh my God, this is going to work. I can do this. And for me, I can remember it was 2006 or 7. I was on a beach in Venezuela of all places, and I had one. It wasn't a BlackBerry, but it was an early competitor to the BlackBerry, which did not last. I think I don't remember who put it out. I wish I could remember the name. It was one of those like really funny.
Palm Pilot?
No, it wasn't a Palm Pilot.
That's
nah, come on, man. way cooler than a Palm Pilot. What is this?
Okay.
It was like I wish I could. I can see it, and it was like it was promoted as like the sexy alternative to the BlackBerry. And like 10 minutes later, like there's iPhone comes out, the first iPhone. And it's like really, really amazing. But anyway, I can remember being on the beach, and I somehow had a signal. Verizon. They're not sponsoring this show, but and nevertheless, I got an email from the guy that was assisting me, and I had set it all up, like so I could really be independent and not have to think about it. But he sent me a question, and I was sitting on this beach in the middle of nowhere, and I responded to his email and sent it. Now, I'm not advocating checking email from the beach, but as an early kind of digital nomad moment, I was like, oh my gosh. This beach chair was just my office for like 90 seconds. Now I'm
actually
back to a beach
that,
chair.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like, oh my God, this works. I can do this. Was there ever kind of a lights on aha moment like that for you?
I knew it was possible, but it was like a lot of people, was the financial thing. It's how am I going to make this sustainable? And right out of the gates, I did because I was providing a service, but that wasn't my ultimate goal. I wanted to have something. I didn't want to be a freelance business development consultant forever because I was still trading time for money, which is fine because it gave me it's a great stepping stone to having something a little different. And it's something we recommend we have a community that services people that are trying to become location independent called Location Indie. And it's something we teach and recommend to them. We tell them, hey, if you want to, if you're trying to do it fast, offering a service is the quickest way to go because you can offer service and put up a website pretty much in a day, at least with some help. Or you don't even have to have a website up. You could just reach out to people and say, hey, I'm doing, I'm a photographer and I'm an expert photo editor. So if you know anybody that needs, their photos edited or wants, some old family photos touched up and put into an album or anything, I mean, you could offer any service and start charging people for it and be in business. And that's essentially what I was doing. But the ultimate goal was to have more of a brand that was my own. And I did that with the event website I had. But I think the moment was when, to answer your question, is when I had the event website for about 18 months. And we had launched the Paradise Pack, which is another project we can talk about if you'd like. And the pack sale went well. I got this 5-figure commission on my event site, which was the first 5-figure commission I had gotten through the site. And I also had commissions from my business development deal. And more money than I've ever made in a month came in 1 month. And I was like, holy crap. If I can do this one time, I can do this again. And that was it because a switch flipped in my head, and I didn't expect to leave my buddy so quick, the business development gig. But I called him the next day and I said, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this for much longer because I had just flipped the switch. I knew it was possible, and I got married some weeks later, I think, and then I went hitchhiking around Scotland for a few days, which was a random end to that story. But
for your honeymoon?
No, I went before the wedding. Sorry, I did this great month, and then I went on this hitchhiking trip, and that was just this freeing feeling. I'm mentioning it because it was a crazy time, and it was a great thing to do before a wedding, and also to give myself a little time to reflect on the decision I had just made, because in my head I knew I was not going back to I was opening a door to a new way and shutting another door what felt like forever, and it has been forever. So
I was going to ask you how being married and having a child has changed your lifestyle, but you've also talked, you talk about in Zero to Travel how there's many different ways to do this. Curious how that's kind of evolved for you since you've had a family.
Yeah, it's evolved in a great way, because one of my goals for being location independent, I thought I wanted to have kids someday. So it was travel related, but it was also, I want to spend more time with my family and friends. I want to be able to control my own schedule. I don't want to wake up to an alarm clock. I don't want to have to answer to anybody unless they're customers of mine. You know, everybody has to answer to somebody to an extent. But I just didn't, I didn't want to be tied to having to go somewhere and come back. And with having a family, part of that is, hey, you get to spend extra time with your kids and you get to take them places and do things that you might not be able to do if you were working a traditional job. So that was not something I knew I was doing anytime soon at the time, but it was there and it was a consideration. And we say, you know, location independence is being location free and having total freedom to live, work, and travel anywhere, even home. And for me, I get to, my wife has a traditional job right now, but my daughter is here and I can take her to daycare and I get to spend extra time with her in the morning and I get to do work that I enjoy in the middle of the day. Or today I didn't feel like working because I wasn't able to get into the flow. So I went outside because it was so nice and just went for a run and things like that, that are just daily life things that I don't take for granted any single day, really, because having the ability to do that is a privilege, you know?
Yeah, I definitely, you hinted at it earlier, so I'm going to bookmark this here. We definitely want to hear more about some of the businesses you've done or set up that have given you that location independence. But talk a little bit about that flow you just mentioned. What do you mean by that? And talk about maybe what that, when you're working on your own, you're not in an office, you're not in a big corporate building, you're not kind of, you're you and your laptop, let's say, on your own. Talk about how that flow state that you're seeking there is so critical.
It's so hard. Do you guys have a hard time getting into the flow? It's a myth, right? I think. I mean, not being in the flow isn't a myth, but
getting into the flow if you try too hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's not so black. I mean, everybody's tried to do creative things that you get stuck, or it's just easy to give up. And one of the things I love about the work that I do is I get to be creative every day, pretty much, and I love coming up with ideas and trying to make things happen. But it's also hard as hell because it's not a simple thing to do for me all the time, and especially working from home and having a kid, because sometimes my daughter will walk in and it just breaks the flow. And I have not gone into a co-working space yet, and I know there are other things I could do better. But today, for example, I went to a cafe because I'm just like, I need to get out, and I think I'll be able to write these emails I need to write better there. And it took me, I don't know, it took about 35 minutes just to figure out the idea of the one email I was going to write. So I got one email done in about an hour.
Right.
And that's just the reality of it sometimes. I had to record some podcasts yesterday, and it took me 3 hours to do a couple intro and outros. And everybody's got their own creative process, and everybody's creative. Everybody brings creativity to whatever job you do. And that looks different for everybody. I think creativity is something that you make time for. It's not the thing that you can certainly have creative bursts, and then you run out of the shower and you write down like 15 ideas because you just had this inspiration. But oftentimes when it comes to doing work like this, where you have to invent the job for yourself, you have to create your own to-do list, you have to create your own products and figure out ways that you can grow your own business. You have to come up with those ideas and implement them, and that in itself is a creative process, and you have to make time for it, even if it's a struggle. And yeah, so I guess the flow thing for me is great when I get there, but it's more of the rare than the norm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, the biggest challenge for me in transitioning from a traditional job to being an entrepreneur and kind of driving my own boat has been, like, I love finishing things. I just want things. I love finishing things. And when you're an entrepreneur and first of all, you're juggling a lot of balls and you've got all kinds of things happening. But inevitably, at the end of the day, the 5 things that I wanted to have finished, 2 might get finished, another one might get halfway there, another one's like 3/4 of the way there, and it's just all it's. I can never satisfy. I can never satisfy my need to get things done, and somehow in a corporate job I had for years, like it's just that whole system is based on just getting things done, and it did kind of satisfy my urge to get things done. Anyway, that's been like the challenge for me is like being okay stopping work at 3 o'clock because we have family things that we want to prioritize and do. Just stopping it when things aren't done. Because the other problem
speaking my language.
Yeah, baby.
You're speaking my language.
Because the problem is sometimes it's like you know there are no office hours. It's not like the doors lock at 5 o'clock. Like I could work anytime. You know, kind of creating those structures for yourself is like a big part of this.
It is, and I get discouraged as well because my mindset around this is it's a battle. I feel the same way. I have this probably one of my biggest weaknesses as an entrepreneur is that I have this feeling that I often have a feeling that I didn't get enough done that day.
Yes,
yeah,
totally. Yeah, completely.
And it's terrible because you're being really hard on yourself. And I know I'm doing it. And even days that I got stuff done, because like you said, there's so much to do and there's so much you want to do. And especially there's a silver lining to this, I guess, as well, because like you guys, the businesses that I run, you know, I mean, for lack of a better term, businesses, but it's all about the service. It's like it's about taking the focus off of yourself and okay, who are the people you're serving? How can you help them? And I want to do right by them, right? So like people in our community, Location Indie, it's like, well, I could always go in and send more messages and contact more people and try to improve it. And it's just a never ending thing, like you said. So it's really easy to get down and feel like you didn't get enough done, at least in my own head, when actually sometimes I'm learning to be a little easier on myself. I'm trying. That's a big struggle for me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
As well.
Yeah, it is. It is a great service that you're offering, being so like honest and transparent about your experience. Because I think that like many times people can't conceive of this kind of lifestyle, even if they might dream of it, because there's so many unknowns or just so many roadblocks. So it'd be great to talk to you a little bit about some of these. You know, you've mentioned these businesses that you offer, the services that you offer. Can you talk about, you know, maybe some of the needs that you've seen out there to help people design a lifestyle that enables them to travel in the way that they want to, and maybe like what you do in your businesses, Zero to Travel, Location Indie, that opens the door and supports that for people.
I guess I'm the poster boy for scratching your own itch, that whole entrepreneur theory of scratch your own itch, because it goes back to the story I told you guys earlier when I was coming out of school and I wanted to travel but didn't know how, and then learning all of these different ways you could do it. And then it was like, well, all right, I want to give people the information that I didn't know so I can help them do it the way I did, even though how I did it was sort of accidental in some way. I had to learn it over a period of time, but what's a way that I can help people that want to travel do that? Because I truly believe it in the power of travel to change the world for the better. And that doesn't mean that people that don't travel can't change the world for the better. I'm not saying that at all, but as a service, Zero to Travel as a podcast and everything I do there, that is one of my core beliefs, that travel is something that makes the world a better place. Now, there are downsides to travel like anything else. You're talking about CO2 emissions and, you know, what's the impact on tourists in different destinations. It's not that black and white, but overall, I do feel like it makes the world a better place because it's connecting people in a real way and exposing them to different cultures and how each other, you know, how other countries live, and they get a chance to talk. If you're visiting a country and they can't leave their country, but maybe they get a chance to talk to somebody from a country that they never got to meet before, and you can almost be a mini ambassador in that way. And it just bridges, it makes cultural connections, and it makes the world, I don't know, I can't put words to it. Right. The podcaster can't put words to it. But it's I believe in that. So I am passionate about that because I want to help people that want to travel do it and find a way to do it, because ultimately I think good things come out of that for people, and also good things come out of helping people do the things they want to do, because then people are happier. It's more of a holistic way of living, right? If you're no job is perfect. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I love my work every day, it's so awesome, because there are headaches with taxes, like what you just talked about, Stephen, having the mindset battles, not being able to put your work down, all these different things. But every job has things, right? And ultimately, I would rather do work that means something to me and that I believe can help other people achieve something that they want to do as well. And that when people are in line with doing the things they want to do and who they are and being true to themselves, then they're going to be more happier and at peace. And then that radiates out to the people that are around them, and so on and so forth. So that's what I believe.
One of the hurdles I think many people face is just looking at the word entrepreneur. It sort of seems like there are that's reserved for people with really advanced degrees, or that's reserved for people who have a great deal of resources or capital. That's reserved for like all these mysterious deals in Silicon Valley. It's sort of there's that kind of rhetoric attached to that word. But since you are so intimate with this world and helping people start, what I would term maybe more grassroots entrepreneurial businesses, though I'm sure many have grown way past that. But talk to the person who is facing that kind of like, I'm not an entrepreneur. They've just decided arbitrarily, though society supports that in many ways by pushing people off into jobs. But like the word entrepreneur, like what does that mean in fact? And what kinds of businesses that you've seen people start that might blow people's minds as to that being a business even? Our aim in many ways is to kind of invite people to step out of those definitions and to explore this as a possibility for themselves. So maybe talk to that person, like what kinds of opportunities are out there, what kinds of businesses are out there that people can start that aren't like these huge, technical Silicon Valley deals that many people might associate with that word entrepreneur.
Yeah, it can be intimidating, because the first flash I got when you started asking that question, which is a multi-layered question right away, by the way, so I'll do my best to tackle it.
Cool,
but
thanks.
Richard Branson or somebody like that, or right. Elon Musk, standing by his rocket, and you got a picture of him. It's like, wow, he started, electric cars and rockets and all that stuff. And that is a type of entrepreneur, I suppose, but not the average entrepreneur, because not everybody has those aspirations. And the thing that I don't want to have $1 billion business. I don't. Yeah. That's way too much responsibility. I don't want to grow a business like that. I want to enjoy time with my family. I want to travel. I want to have, I don't want to go to that level. And that's cool. That's what lifestyle business is all about. That's why I prefer that term over entrepreneurship, because when you're talking about lifestyle business or location independent business, particularly lifestyle business, you are building the business around your lifestyle, and that can mean a lot of different things. It can mean building the business around your beliefs, the people you want to serve. And if you don't want to serve people, then you won't be good at business, because that's what it's all about. You have to care about the people that you're helping and figure out ways to help them. And if you do that, you can be in business with just about anything. And take a look at all the different products you use every day and all the different services that you use and why are they a part of your life, and why do you resonate with those companies, and how would you feel if they didn't exist? That's the other thing, because if you are somebody who feels they have something to offer and everybody does, then by not putting energy and time into it, you're depriving the world of that, right? And I use that as a motivator myself. Sometimes I don't feel like doing the podcast. I don't feel like doing an interview at 10 o'clock at night because I live in Norway and somebody's living on the west coast of the US, or they're in Hawaii and whatever. But the thing that gets me up is, well, I'm going to share this with people, and there's going to be somebody that listens that gets value out of this. And that keeps me going in times when I'm not sure if I'm in the mood for it, for lack of a better term. So I think reframing the idea of entrepreneurship as whatever it is that you want it to be. And there's somebody in our community, Location Indie, that I was just trading message with the other day. And, he has a business around, for example, they're selling travel-related products that aren't made with plastics. What a simple concept. But that's in line with their values, and that's something that they feel will make the world a better place and something that they're putting out there. So there are a lot of different ways to do it. It's understandable if you're intimidated by the whole idea of running your own business, because it is scary and it is a skill that you need to learn. Like anything else, you don't start running a business and know how to run a business as soon as you start it. And one of the encouraging things you can do, have you guys ever listened to, there are a couple podcasts out there. One is How I Built This, I believe it's called. It's an NPR podcast.
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, I don't think we've not listened to that one. No.
If you listen to pretty much any long form interview with any successful company owner, and on that podcast, I've listened to interviews by, the people by the guy that founded Tom's Shoes. I can't think of his name right now.
Right.
Or maybe that was
Tom?
somewhere else. No, his name's not Tom. His name's Blake.
Darn.
His name's Blake, actually. I can't remember if it was that podcast, but anyway, I've listened to some different long form interviews with different founders, and it's you'll hear it in every single one. They didn't know what they were doing. They all didn't know what they were doing, basically. And that's the big myth about business. And I remember when I was working with my buddy, and I first discovered this when I did the business development stuff, I was like, well, what do you think? Should we do this? And he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I said, holy crap, nobody knows what they're doing. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And if you want something really encouraging to take away from this podcast, focus on that. Nobody knows what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. You guys, maybe you know what you're doing, but I don't know. I'm sure sometimes you don't know what you're doing too. And I mean, there are times when you just don't know what you're doing. You're going to hit certain points when you don't know, but that can happen in a lot of different jobs, So it's about getting comfortable with that idea. And when that occurs, you can find solace in the fact that, hey, you're not alone, because everybody was trying to figure this out and has gone through these struggles. And that's why we started a community, because every person is unique, every business is unique, but the struggles are all very similar, if not practically all of them are in common. Like, I have imposter syndrome. I don't feel like I'm an expert enough. I have too many ideas and I can't pick one. I have an idea and I'm not sure if it's going to be profitable, so I'm not sure if I should put my time into it. I have a full-time job and I don't know if I have enough time to work on this on the side. I mean, all of these things are all things that people have dealt with and overcome. So anything that you can look at that's a challenge to you or a problem, you can look at it as a challenge and figure out, okay, how have other people overcome this? Or what are some ways that I can, reframe this idea of entrepreneurship, build something around my lifestyle, and feel good and excited about what I'm building, as opposed to intimidating. Although you will be intimidated at times, because it can be hard. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Like, I just think about like how long I was blocked. Steven had experience with running an online business when we got together, and I was in a very like formal legal job, and like he just kept telling me to like start writing or just try something, or like that idea that you don't have to have the whole like 5-year, 10-year plan mapped out, and that nobody really knows what they're doing, that you're just creating, and that's part of the creative process, is to just like take a step forward and then take another step, and it's really just about like being willing to believe that things are open and there's unlimited potential there. It took me for so long, and I did a lot of those things. I stepped down, basically. I stepped down my corporate legal job to like a remote legal job, and then consulting, and then freelance, and then like stepped it down till we took the leap and did this. But it's great. It's like so freeing, I think. And I wanted to ask you next about community, so it's perfect that you landed there. We this is a live topic for us for sure. And we talk a lot about how when you're making a choice that's different from what the mainstream promotes, and I know that this is more common now than when you started, but it's still not a mainstream way of living or working. How important it is to have people around you who have done it, who you can learn from, and also just support you in knowing that this is an awesome way to live, and you're doing the right thing. Go for it. Like talk to us about Location Indie and why that's so important and what you guys offer there for others.
Sure. Thanks for asking. The last thing I wanted to say, just going back to what we talked about before, because just hearing your story a little bit, Teresa, it kind of sparked this idea of, trying it out too, because if you have a burning desire to try something out on your own, it's also good to try things because maybe you won't like it, and that's okay, but at least you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there are other options. You could work remotely for somebody else. You could get seasonal jobs. It doesn't mean that you can't travel and see the world. It just means that, well, maybe doing it as an entrepreneur or a lifestyle business entrepreneur, whatever you want to call yourself right now, isn't the right way. And that's okay too. And I just wanted to kind of mention that too, because it's not something, it wasn't something. I did those travel jobs for all those years. And even though I started having the desire to do my own thing, I wasn't ready, because deep down I wasn't ready for the responsibility, and I didn't want to have to answer emails at night and work while I was on the road. I wanted to just be done my work and then save up money and then go travel and just be in the country I was in. And it does affect your experience when you're working and traveling. It's not the same experience as if you take off and go on the round the world trip with money you have saved and no responsibilities. That's a totally different thing. Just like it's a totally different thing if you decide to bring your smartphone or not, or whatever the case is. So, or if you do a bike tour instead of doing a backpacking trip, or you decide to hike, it's all going to play into the experience that you have. So that's just something I wanted to point out. But community's huge. I mean, I had joined a mastermind group years ago, and I can say that it was because of that group that I started pretty much all of these things, because I had people around me that were helping me and encouraging me, and we were helping and encouraging each other. And there was so much power in that. When we first decided to launch the Paradise Pack, which if you guys want to talk about that, we can too. We realized, okay, we got people all this education at once and all of the skills they need to know, but they don't have support. There's nowhere to go to really interact with other people doing this. And like you said, it seems like, I think if you're listening to this show, and I mean, you guys, it can really feel like, I don't know if you guys feel this, but sometimes I feel like most of the world is clued in on this, because it seems like it's getting bigger, but actually we're in this little bubble, right? Of working and remote work is exploding and it's getting bigger. So I know it's going to be even bigger than it is now, but you forget sometimes how small this world is. So if it's something you want to be around, it is so key to get around other people that are supporting you on your journey. And because a lot of those struggles are common, like we mentioned, you can then talk to other people that have gone through that and get advice on how they overcame it. And when we get into some of these calls with our community and Location Indie, where people talk about a struggle, and then other people will come up, we use Zoom, so people will come up on the call and just start offering advice on how they handled the situation. And you just see minds opening up. You see people starting to relax because they realized that, hey, this is great advice, and this person's been through this too. And there may be some indefinable things around community as well, whether it's some kind of energy and a rising tide lifts all boats and all that type of stuff. But it's totally true, and you help each other out, and you have to get around people, whatever you're doing, whether you join an online community or whether you take the initiative yourself and you say, hey, I don't know anybody in this town that's doing this lifestyle business thing. I'm going to go to meetup.com and start a lifestyle business meetup, or call it the 4-Hour Workweek fans or whatever, because I'm into this. And I know there's got to be some other people that are into this, and finding those people some way, because you got to get around your peeps. And you already know this if you've had success in something else because of other people encouraging you, and everybody has. If you've had anybody encouraging you in life, whether you were running track and it was your parents that were encouraging you to go to practice and do that stuff, or whatever, the encouragement and the advice and the help along the way is huge for achieving anything in life. So community is everything.
And have you found that an online community can more or less replace the physical community that we seem to be transitioning away from, the office environment, if you will?
No, I don't think it can replace it, because you have to have those human interactions, right? At some point. I mean, it's a tool, and it's something that you can use to give yourself a better chance of success. And it's the critical piece, really. So you have to have it in some way, shape, or form, but we all have to get out into the real world as well, And for me, being over here, I live in Norway right now as an expat. I'm not plugged into a community that's doing that type of stuff here in Norway, just because, well, first of all, I was busy. Well, I have my community online, so yes. I haven't really felt as much of a need. So I connect with people in the real world in different ways. I might go play guitar with my neighbor, or we go for barbecue or whatever. But when it comes to the business stuff and this particular type of thing, I don't know anywhere else where I can go and find, hundreds of people that are doing that same thing, except for my community. And we're going to be doing a community gathering later this year, because we do want to have that in-person element too. And people in our community also set up gatherings of their own. If they're, living in New York and there are other members there, they'll meet up and all that type of stuff. So it's a point of connection, and it's a way to be around other people doing it. And then we work to get people into mastermind groups, because we've had as I mentioned before, had such success with mastermind groups. So we'll get people into smaller groups so they can hold each other accountable. And it's a beautiful thing. We're just bringing everybody together and doing our best to create the platform where everybody can connect and help each other out. Yeah,
masterminds are amazing. So helpful. Why Norway? Curious.
Because it's so cheap and affordable that really? I couldn't help. No.
Wait a second.
Wouldn't have come to the top of my list of cheap destinations I'm sure you've been to.
One of the most expensive countries in the world. No, I met my wife in a hostel in Brazil many years ago, and I won't go into the whole story, but basically we reconnected after several years, and blah, blah. Now we're married and we have a 2-year-old, and I live in Norway.
She's from Norway?
Yeah, she's Norwegian.
And so along those lines, and thinking about kind of locations where people, so one of the things that can happen, I've seen this happen a lot, it's a popular theme amongst location independent folks, is to, let's say you're living in New York City, where you quit your job and you move somewhere where you can kind of hunker down for, say, 6 months or something and build a business. Are there places out there now that you're aware of that are hot spots amongst people starting kind of digital nomad / location independent type businesses?
It's so funny you say that, because we have a guide we're giving out with the Paradise Pack as part of the promotion leading up to it. That's our top 11 hotspots, digital nomad hotspots, which is hilarious. The Paradise Pack, by the way, is I've referenced it a couple times.
Yeah, we were just going to ask you about that, so let's go for it now.
Yeah, this ties in. It's a bundle sale we do every year. We've done it. This is our 5th year doing it. This year it's May 29th through June 4th, 2018. And basically, we figured out, after all this floundering on the internet, like I mentioned before, and I say we because I have a business partner, that it took us a long time to figure out a very simple concept, which was, okay, you need a certain set of skills to run a lifestyle business online, right? And most of it, if you're going to be working from anywhere, you're going to be doing some kind of online endeavor. Mm-hmm. And if you can get those skills, they can translate to pretty much any type of business, which is an awesome thing. And you need an education. It's just like if you're going to become a doctor, you need to go to medical school. If you want to become a mechanic, you need to learn how to work on cars at some point. If you want to be location independent, you need a certain core set of skills that you can then use to run your business. I'm talking about things like, for how to run a freelance business, copywriting, we have a whole bunch of products in the pack that I can rattle off. But essentially, we took all the different skills that one would want in online business and lifestyle business and travel, went to some of the best people in the world out there that are selling products that teach these things online. We said, hey, put in your course, and we want to give it to people at a huge discount for 1 week only, and then it's gone forever. So we do it every year, and it's an educational offering that you really can't get anywhere else. It's like everything that we wanted to have. Instead of trying to piecemeal it and find it all over the internet, instead we give you one pack of amazing courses and products that teach you all of these skills, so you can then take those skills and either level up your current online business if you're location independent now, or create one. And that's what it is. So if you go to theparadisepack.com, you can see what's in it this year. We haven't added it up recently. It was over $5,000 worth of stuff. Now it's, I believe, over $6,000 worth of world-class education for over 90% off. So it's pretty insane. And it doesn't last forever because nobody wants to discount their courses forever like that. But somehow we talk these people into it, and they've now been doing it with us for, a lot of them have been doing it with us for the last 4 years. So that says something as well. So we have people like Natalie Sisson, who has been featured on 60 Minutes with Tim Ferriss, 60 Minutes New Zealand, as a digital nomad. We have my friend Azul, who's a writing coach. We have Brian, who's an entrepreneurial educator. People that teach how to be a virtual assistant. We have Sylvia, who lives in Norway, who has a course on Pinterest for bloggers. We have a course on SEO for bloggers. If you don't know what that is, that's a whole other topic. We have a course on podcasting, travel writing and being productive as a writer, a course on how to create products on Amazon. And then we have travel stuff like learning a language and travel hacking and travel blog, video editing, and all that type of stuff. So it's crazy. It's a crazy project. I still can't believe it's going after 5 years. So we're meeting down in Mallorca. I'm meeting my buddy down in Mallorca, Spain for the week we're launching it. And I'm bringing my 2-year-old daughter by myself, which is intimidating. On a flight to Mallorca, and we're going to be there. But we're doing all sorts of cool giveaways for the pack leading up to the sale. So if you're listening to this before May 29th, you still might be able to grab that guide. And if not, we're going to put them in the Paradise Pack for anybody that purchases it. So
sweet.
That sounds awesome. It sounds awesome. And Natalie Sisson's been a guest on this show too. So she's
nice.
Fantastic. She's fantastic. Say again the dates. It's May 29th to June 4th, right?
Yeah, 2018. So
nice.
Yeah, we know that's 2018 now. But if you're listening in the future, what is it like?
Just after Memorial Day.
Let us know.
I'd still want to hear if there. Maybe give us 3 places, the hot spots. Is Chiang Mai still on the list?
Yes, Chiang Mai is on the list. I know a lot of people that are down in Playa del Carmen right now in Mexico, and Medellin in Colombia is another hot spot. So
I'm hearing a lot about Medellin as well. Yeah, that Paradise Pack sounds amazing. That's very exciting to think about somebody obtaining that and then using that throughout the process of starting something. And especially, I think that would be tremendously helpful.
Yeah, so empowering. Really cool.
Because inevitably you get 3 steps down the road and you're like, oh, how do I do this? WordPress, what the heck is that? Or whatever.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, we don't want, sometimes you buy online courses. I'm guilty of it, and I'm sure others are. And then they just end up sitting on your hard drive for a while because you never get time for them, or you don't make time. And we really try in the beginning, especially when people get the Paradise Pack, we're like, okay, now you have to actually get into it. So we do a workshop in the beginning for all the customers to help them figure out, okay, what are the best, because there's 20 plus courses. So what are the best places to start? If you're this type of person, you should take a look at these. If you're looking to learn this stuff, this is where you should go first, and really try to do our best to get people in and to guide them so they're not overwhelmed with all of this stuff and they can get started on the right foot. And that can be for anybody in the location independent journey, right? Because, for example, there are a couple of courses the SEO for bloggers course. I mean, I'm always learning SEO, and our buddy Matt did this, and he's just like a whiz. He has various websites that are making great income, and all because of his SEO skills. So I can't wait to go through his course. And there are some other courses in here on content and different things that I'm just excited myself to learn as well. So
yeah, I love SEO. It's, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's search engine optimization. It's basically the art/science of having your content ranked in mainly Google. But it's always changing. So you as an entrepreneur, I can't possibly keep up with all the SEO changes. I think it's almost mandatory to have somebody else who's an expert, like every year, as you're suggesting here, kind of weigh in and tell you what's changing, what's new, what not to do. It's just always, it's such a fluid thing, SEO.
And that's really true about all of this kind of information you're providing, because it's like such as you were saying before, it's like such a rapidly growing way to live industry, that I can imagine that all of these resources are really dynamic. So,
yeah, I mean, the scary thing is it can be intimidating thinking you have to master all these skills. You don't have to master them. You just have to get good enough at a core set of them. Yeah. And it's an investment like anything else. When you invest in a college to get a degree on a specific thing, when you invest your time in a job you're working at, or in exchange you get something, and sometimes that's a paycheck, and sometimes that's knowledge. In this case, it's knowledge that you can utilize to run different types of businesses and hopefully generate more income and create that location independent lifestyle. So
yeah, cool.
Awesome. Well, I know that we should wrap up, and we'll definitely include all that information about the Paradise Pack, the link to get it, and the dates in the show notes here. But we always wrap up the podcast with 3 consistent questions that we ask every guest. So we'll just dive into those. No,
I didn't know there was going to be a lightning round.
Doesn't have to be as fast as lightning. So the first one is, what book or books up to 3 would you recommend that everyone should read? And if there's any kind of resource out there that's been more, like more important to you than a book, like a video or something like that, that's okay to go outside the box.
Sure. The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Most often mentioned book on this podcast.
All right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Amazing.
Oh, that's funny. Wow. Go Michael Singer. I want to interview him on my podcast so bad, but the publishers never got back to me. So if you guys get in with them, let me know. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind,
cool.
Which is a classic. So those are more, it's funny because we talk about all this business stuff, but then those are very sort of thinking, spiritual type of books, because often a lot of it's going on up in the head, Right. So
absolutely.
I need those types of books. Another one, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, and Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Those are all going to go up on a shelf prominently. So if my daughter ever wants to, she gets older and she wants to dive into something, be like, hey, have a look at this. These might help you out.
Great. We're in Encinitas, California, right above Yogananda's ashram here. It's a huge influence in this community. Nice. We've read that book multiple times.
Yeah, you have to read it actually to get across the border into town.
Nice. Well, I guess
monks. Yeah,
I guess they'll let me in.
You're in. Yeah, totally.
Nice.
So second question would be, let's just point this question to a person kind of dreaming of a life outside the box, a life kind of maybe as an entrepreneur, but really someone who wishes to travel more and maybe work from anywhere. And what's like a first step they could take? What's one thing they can do right away to kind of get the ball moving in that direction?
Yeah, sorry. When you were asking that question, I thought of one more thing I wanted to recommend to people.
Oh, please. Yeah. Cool.
But it wasn't a book. It was a series called, have you seen Cosmos, A Space-Time Odyssey? Was this the one? It was hosted by Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
Just to put things in perspective, just to have your mind reblown, all the things that we saw when we were children and we were like, wow, how did that come to be? How does that tree grow from the sea? All that stuff. It's a good show to get things back into perspective. Okay, so sorry. The question was, what do I recommend to get the ball rolling on a location independent lifestyle?
Yeah, I think so.
Committing to it and prioritizing it, and then filtering your decisions through that new lens, because what you prioritize then becomes the starting point for all of your decisions and your actions, right? So if you say, hey, this is something I really want and I'm committed to this in terms of being a big picture goal, it might not happen overnight. It might happen quickly, depending on your situation, really. Right. But having the true commitment where you're like, hey, this is a lifestyle I want to have. I'm really interested in, not just interested in it, but I'm going for this. And then starting to make your decisions based around that. And then getting around people that are doing it, because you will lose momentum. It's just inevitable. I mean, any project, anything like this, any long-term type of endeavor, you need to have the support, and you need people around you to help you get through the low times, because there will be times where it doesn't, feel so great and it's easy to give up. And when you have people around you encouraging you and holding you accountable, then they won't let you give up when you feel that.
Yeah, that's huge. Huge for us too. The third question is, what are you most excited about in your life right now?
Well, we are having another baby in July.
Oh, so congratulations.
And that is what I'm most excited about right now. And of course, the Paradise Pack launch, which is coming up. And I'm not saying that as like a shameless plug. I'm seriously excited about it because it's something we do every year, and we get so hyped for this thing. It's insane because it's only around for a week and then it's gone forever. So it's a huge thing. And we just, I don't know. That's all we've been working on essentially. So it's all consuming.
Yeah, sweet. That's tremendous. And again, we'll put a link in our show notes to that if people want to check it out. Wow, Jason, this has been amazing. Why don't you, just as a kind of a final thing, tell people where they can connect with you online in the various forms you exist out there, and then if there's anything else coming up for you after the Paradise Pack, then maybe share that too.
Yeah, sure. If you like podcasts, Zero to Travel is a podcast I host, and I also co-host the Location Indie podcast, and that's INDIE. So zerototravel.com or locationindie.com. You can find those, and that's Location Indie is the community we talked about. And of course, theparadisepack.com is the bundle sale we mentioned. That's pretty much it.
Cool.
Awesome, Jason. This has been so great talking to you, and like so much fantastic information and a real inspiration for others, and so accessible. It's great. Plus, it would be, I think, if we're ever in Norway, it'd be really fun to connect with you personally.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, we need to do that. Do you have any plans on coming over here?
Maybe.
There is a Northern European kind of tour lurking, perhaps this summer. So we'll see. Yeah. It's shaping up. We hear there's a lot of cool digital nomad activity happening up in Norway now that their economy has crashed.
Yeah, because of the low cost of living, right? No. Well, it would be great to meet up. I would love that.
That's it for this week's Ownstream podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this amazing interview with Jason Moore. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode for links to everything mentioned, including a link to the Paradise Pack, his podcast, the Location Indie community, and the other resources we discussed. All of that can be found at ownstream.co/Jason Moore. That's ownstream.co/JASONMOORE.
Please sign up for our newly revamped newsletter, News for a New Earth, Tools and Stories for an Enlightened World. Approximately twice per month, we send out a digest of the latest findings in creation emerging from the vast paradigm shift of awakening happening on the planet. Everything from spiritual breakthroughs to scientific findings about the quantum field and consciousness, to the latest in alternative living structures, nutrition and health, cryptocurrency, community building, world travel, and more. Basically, it's the news you actually need. Please sign up at ownstream.co and just click the sign up link in the upper right-hand corner on any page.
Also, please leave us a review on iTunes. We really need your help in expanding our reach, helping us to inspire more people and spread the amazing ideas discussed on this episode with Jason Moore and others too. If it feels right to you, simply go to iTunes, search for the Ownstream podcast, click ratings and reviews, then click that 5th star and leave us a brief comment on how this episode or others has inspired you. Thank you so much for considering that. We are very grateful. Finally, we're on Twitter and Facebook at Ownstream and on Instagram at own_stream. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to the Ownstream podcast. To learn more and connect with us, please visit ownstream.co or follow us on Twitter at Ownstream and Instagram at own_stream.